Rachel had been acting overly sweet for 2 days before it happened. She cooked dinner, offered to drive me to my doctor's appointment, even brought me flowers. That alone should have been a red flag. She had never done that before, not in the 8 years she'd been married to my son. I tried to ignore it, told myself maybe she was just turning a new page, trying to finally be kind. I wanted to believe that. I wanted to believe that after everything, after the side comments, after the way she always looked through me like I wasn't there. After years of being treated like a burden maybe, Rachel had finally decided I deserved better. So when she said she wanted to take me to visit a new geriatric wellness center near Springfield to see if I'd like the environment, I didn't ask many questions. I packed an overnight bag, wore my best cardigan, and even curled my hair. I thought it was just a tour. I thought it was just a short ride and back. Hold on a moment before we move forward. Let us know where in the world you're watching from. And if you're loving these stories, don't forget to hit subscribe. Tomorrow's episode is going to be absolutely mind-blowing. We left after breakfast. My son Travis didn't even say goodbye. He mumbled something from the hallway and shut the office door behind him. Rachel had my suitcase already packed in the trunk when I stepped out to the car. I noticed she didn't help me with the step down. Even though she knows my knees aren't what they used to be, it was a quiet drive. Rachel kept checking her phone at every stoplight, barely saying a word except when she asked if I had my ID and my medication. Yes, I told her. Everything's in my purse. She nodded and muttered, "Good," without even looking up. We arrived at the train station instead of any wellness center. I remember squinting at the building, confused. Wait, this isn't... I started. But she interrupted. I thought it'd be more fun if you took a little train ride first. Just to clear your mind, I booked you a ticket to Asheville. The air is clean, the town is lovely, and you'll love the bed and breakfast I found. I looked at her. I must have looked lost. Rachel, why would I go to Asheville alone? What is this? She opened the trunk and handed me my suitcase. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Because I need a break, she said simply. I've been the only one looking after you. Travis is always working. And I've given up my life for the last 2 years to keep things running around the house while you mope around, judging everything we do. I never asked for that, I said, my voice shaking. You and Travis insisted I move in. Rachel crossed her arms. And it was a mistake. You don't belong in that house anymore. You don't cook, you barely leave your room, and you make everything about you. I'm tired of pretending like I owe you something just because you're old. I stood frozen, surrounded by the sound of travelers moving around, US dragging suitcases, calling out, laughing. I felt like none of them saw me. She reached into her purse and handed me a one-way ticket. There's cash in the envelope and a pamphlet from the place I found for you in Asheville. They'll pick you up at the station. You're leaving me here? Asked, still trying to process it. Does Travis even know? Rachel looked me dead in the eye. He does, and he agrees. He just doesn't have the guts to say it. She didn't hug me. She didn't help me inside. She just got back in the car, started the engine, and drove off. I stood there with a suitcase in one hand and a train ticket in the other. Shaking so hard I had to sit down. I didn't cry, not at first. I just kept thinking, this can't be happening. Not to me. Not after everything I've done. I raised Travis by myself after his father died. I took on 2 jobs, skipped meals so he could eat, gave up my own retirement to help him start that business that Rachel now manages like she owns it. And this is how they thank me. I sat there for nearly an hour. I watched trains come and go. I saw families embracing, little kids giggling, people rushing to catch their departures. I didn't board the train to Asheville. I didn't move at all. Finally, a familiar voice broke through my thoughts. Elaine. Elaine Johnson. I turned. It took me a moment to recognize her gray curls tucked under a transit staff cap. Blue uniform slightly faded. "I's still the same as when we used to teach at the same elementary school 30 years ago, Peggy," I whispered. She gasped and came closer. "What in the world are you doing out here alone?" When I told her, I didn't even have to finish the story. She wrapped her arms around me like we were still in our 30s and whispered, "Come on. You're not staying here tonight." I followed her into the staff lounge, sat down with a hot cup of coffee. And for the first time since Rachel drove away, I felt my body stop trembling. Peggy wouldn't let me sleep on a bench or take the train. Anywhere, she brought me home with her that night. As I sat on the edge of her guest bed staring at the pamphlet Rachel had left me, I realized something. They thought I was helpless. They thought they could throw me away like old mail and move on with my money, my house, and their perfect little lives. But I wasn't finished. They thought they knew what I had. They had no idea what I still controlled. And I wasn't about to let them keep it. Peggy's house was small and smelled faintly of cinnamon and furniture polish. She lived alone, had been divorced for over 20 years, and filled her spare time working at the station and tending to her overfed tabby cat named Murphy. That night, she made me scrambled eggs and toast, sat across the table with 2 mugs of tea, and didn't push for more details than I wanted to give. "I always thought Rachel had a cold streak," she said eventually. "But this, I didn't say much." My stomach was too tight to eat more than a few bites. I kept playing the conversation over and over in my head. The ticket, her tone, the casual way she said I was a burden, Travis agreeing. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a lapse in judgment. This had been planned. "Do you want to call him?" Peggy asked. "No," I said flatly, because I knew what that call would be. Travis wouldn't pick up, or he'd say he was in a meeting, or didn't know what else to do, and worst of all, he'd sound tired. That fake, heavy tiredness he always used when he wanted me to feel like a problem. I hadn't spoken to him since she drove away. I hadn't received a call, a message, not even a forwarded email. And I knew why. They thought they'd gotten rid of me. The next morning, I woke early. I hadn't slept well, but I was alert. My head felt clear. I showered, got dressed in the same slacks and cardigan I'd worn the day before, and tied my hair. Peggy offered to drive me back to the station, but I told her no. I have somewhere else to go. She didn't ask questions. She handed me a grocery bag with a few sandwiches and a bottled water, pressed some cash into my hand, and gave me the spare key to her house. "Come back if you need to," she said. "You're not alone, Elaine, not while I'm still breathing." I left with a plan forming in my head. I walked 5 blocks to the credit union I'd been with for over 40 years. I still had my ID, my passwords, my security questions memorized. The woman at the desk, Laura, remembered me from the days when I used to come in every other week to deposit school paychecks. I sat down across from her desk. "Miss Johnson," she said, surprised. "Is everything okay?" "Not yet," I said, "but it will be. I need to talk to someone about my accounts, all of them. And I want to make sure nothing has been changed." Laura blinked, then nodded. Of course. Over the next hour, I learned a few things. My primary checking account, the one I'd been using daily, was nearly empty. That didn't surprise me. Rachel had convinced me 6 months ago to switch to a shared household system. "It's easier for groceries, bills, and managing your medications," she had said. I let her do it because I didn't want to argue. Travis never liked it when we argued. But what she didn't know, what no one knew, was that I never closed my original savings accounts, and I never linked them to the household banking. I had learned from experience. After my husband died, I was left cleaning up financial messes for months. I told myself I'd never again give up full control. I still had the trust fund I'd set up when I sold the house I'd owned before moving in with Travis and Rachel. I had 2 CDs, one maturing next month. And, more importantly, I still had legal ownership of the property title to Travis's house, because when he started the business 5 years ago, they couldn't get approved for a mortgage on their own. So the loan went through under my name. I paid the down payment, I signed the paperwork. They never bothered to check if I'd transferred the title over to them. I never did. Can I help you with anything else, Miss Johnson? Laura asked. Yes, I said. I need to speak with someone about updating the trustees on my accounts and putting a freeze on any future access. She paused. Did someone attempt to access them? Not yet, I said, but they will. Spent the next few hours visiting 3 different places: the credit union, the title office, and then my lawyer's office. Mr. Benjamin Keller had handled my paperwork for years. He was slow, sharp, and discreet. He was also the only person who knew just how much I had protected. Benjamin didn't ask why I showed up without an appointment, or why I looked like I hadn't slept. He simply closed the door, handed me a glass of water, and asked, "Do we need to move everything?" "Yes," I said, immediately. "And I want it all documented. It's the trust, the house, the fallback account, everything. You want it locked down, as tight as it can get." Benjamin nodded. All right. We worked for 3 hours straight. By the time I walked out, I was exhausted but clear. Everything I had left, everything I had earned, had now been placed in a revised, irrevocable trust. If Rachel or Travis tried to access any portion of it, they'd find nothing but legal walls. That night, I stayed again at Peggy's. I told her I just needed the day to think. I didn't mention the lawyer or the bank or the house. Yet I wasn't ready to talk about the betrayal. Not out loud. But I did open a notebook and started writing. Not a journal. It's just facts. March 3rd, Rachel left me at the train station. March 4th, confirmed house still in my name. Trust secured. March 5th, no calls, no messages. The silence was telling. Knew Rachel thought I'd be too humiliated to say anything. I knew she expected me to board that train and disappear. And Travis, he'd always hated conflict. He would go along with anything that let him avoid it. That's why she did it this way. She knew he wouldn't stop her. But the thing about playing with someone else's life is that sometimes they don't disappear. Sometimes they come back. The following afternoon, Peggy and I went to the grocery store together. She bumped into a woman from church who asked how I'd been. "She's just visiting for a while." Peggy said easily. I nodded. I didn't explain. There was no need, but later, as we were walking back to the car, Peggy looked at me and said, "You're planning on telling them you're still in town?" I didn't answer at first. "I'm not sure yet," I said. "But if I do, it won't be with words." Peggy just nodded and handed me the car keys. That night, I sat at her kitchen table, opened my phone, and scrolled through Travis's Facebook page. The last post was a photo of their backyard, set up for a barbecue. Rachel had written, "Spring. Cleaning done. Ready for a new season?" The comments were full of heart emojis and compliments on her hard work. Hard work. She thought I was gone. She thought I was done. She had no idea I had just started. 3 days had passed since Rachel left me at the train station. Not a word from her. Not a word from Travis. I knew better than to expect one, but some part of me still stared at my phone every evening for a few seconds longer than necessary, just to check if a message had come through. It never did. On the morning of the 4th day, I woke up earlier than usual. Peggy was already in the kitchen, flipping through a newspaper and sipping her coffee. She didn't say anything when I sat down across from her. She just handed me my cup, the same way she had every day since I arrived. "I think it's time. I go back," I said quietly. Her eyes lifted, but she didn't look surprised. "Back to the house?" "No," I said. "Back to the city." Peggy folded the newspaper and set it aside. "You're sure?" "I need to see things with my own eyes, not from a phone screen." She nodded slowly, then got up and pulled a set of car keys from the drawer. "You want me to drive you?" "No," I said. "But I could use a ride to the station." The irony, I know. Peggy smiled. "Better to return on your own terms." An hour later, I stood in front of the train schedule display. This time, with a real ticket in hand and a suitcase, I packed myself. The trip wasn't long. I hadn't gone far when Rachel dumped me at that platform. It was only one town over. Still, it felt different going back, like I was stepping into enemy territory with my name still hanging on the mailbox. The station in our city hadn't changed. Same concrete floors, same blinking vending machines. I took a taxi to a small motel off Pine Street. Clean, quiet, anonymous. I checked in under a lane T and paid in cash. The clerk didn't ask questions. Once I was in the room, I didn't waste time. I pulled out my tablet connected to the motel's slow Wi-Fi and logged into the property management portal that Benjamin had helped set up. The house still showed as belonging to EJT Holdings LLC MI Trust. Rachel and Travis had never questioned the name on the paperwork. They assumed it was just one of those complicated legal structures people use to avoid taxes. I let them think. That dot at 1:14 p.m., I received my first call. Blocked number. I didn't answer. At 1:16 p.m., a voicemail came through. I listened to it twice before saving it. Travis's voice rushed and breathless. Mom, I just got home and saw the envelope from the county office. Can you call me back, please? I smiled. They had received the official notice I'd requested. It stated that the trust managing the property was exercising its right to reassess tenancy and occupancy. In short, it meant the house was under legal review and no changes could be made to it, no refinancing. No remodeling, no sale. Not even a new insurance policy without the trust manager's written approval. That trust manager was me. At 2:40 p.m., Rachel called. No voicemail, just a missed call. I didn't call her back either. That evening, I walked past the house. I stayed across the street behind a row of parked cars. The porch light was on, and through the kitchen window, I saw Rachel pacing in circles on her phone while Travis sat at the table, rubbing his forehead with both hands. They looked like people who had just realized they'd made a very expensive mistake. I didn't stay long, just enough to feel what I needed to feel. Then I walked 2 blocks down to the public library and printed a few documents I'd brought with me on a flash drive. The property title, the trust formation, and the freeze notices. The next morning, I sent them via certified mail to Rachel and Travis with a handwritten note clipped to the top. You left me at the station, just returning the favor. I didn't include a return address. Back at the motel, I made myself a sandwich and watched the security camera feed Benjamin had helped me install the year before. They never knew I had added exterior cameras to the property. I watched Rachel walk out to the mailbox in her robe, pull out the envelope, and just stand there staring at it like it was a letter from a ghost. She didn't open it on the lawn. She looked around, scanned the street, then rushed back inside like someone afraid of being seen. Good later that day, I walked downtown to the office of our old family accountant, Mr. Darrell Hinson. He was semi-retired, worked by appointment only, and kept his own hours. But when I called from a payphone, he picked up on the second ring. Elaine. "Okay? I thought you moved out of state." "I did," I said. "Then I came back." Had always liked me better than Travis. He was one of those men who respected people who did things the hard way. We met over coffee at his office. I slid a manila folder across the desk. "I want to make sure Rachel and Travis don't have access to anything with my name on it," I said. Darrell looked through the documents, then nodded slowly. "They don't. Never did." "But you want me? To make it bulletproof? Want them boxed out of everything they assumed they controlled?" He smiled. "That I can do." I left with an updated statement in hand and the peace of knowing every financial access they thought they had was now locked behind paperwork they couldn't touch. Back at the motel, I took my shoes off and sat on the bed. I didn't cry. Didn't smile. I just sat there for a long time. At 7:03 p.m., my phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Travis. Double quotes, "Mom, please, can we talk?" I didn't know she was going to do that. "I thought you were just going away for a while to rest." "I didn't know she was dropping you off." Stared at the screen. Then I typed one line. "You watched her pack the car." I didn't hit send. I deleted it. Then I turned off the phone and went to sleep. Tomorrow, I'd pay one more visit. Not to the house, to the lawyer Rachel had used to update the estate plans a few months back. I'd seen his name on a document Travis had once left open on the kitchen counter. They thought I didn't notice. They thought I wasn't paying attention, but I always noticed everything. I just waited for the right time to act, and that time had come. I arrived at the law office a few minutes before it opened. It was a small brick building sandwiched between a dry cleaner and a nail salon just outside the main square. The kind of place people pass 100 times without really seeing. On the door, a faded gold sticker read, Thomas Henley, Estate and Probate. I remembered the name from that day months ago when Travis left the folder on the dining table. He'd stepped out to take a call and Rachel had been in the laundry room. I wasn't trying to snoop. I just happened to glance at the first page before they rushed to clear it away. It wasn't a will yet. It was a draft. But it was clear enough my name wasn't in it. The secretary arrived shortly after I did. She looked about 20, polite, but stiff. I told her I didn't have an appointment, but that I needed to speak with Mr. Henley about a document I believed had been prepared under my name. She checked the schedule and said he had a short opening before his next client. She led me to a small waiting area with beige chairs and a gurgling water cooler that hadn't been cleaned in a while. Mr. Henley came out. 10 minutes later, mid-60s, thinning hair, glasses too small for his face. He looked surprised when he saw me. Double quotes, Mrs. Johnson. He asked. That's me, I said, standing. We shook hands. His grip was dry and cautious. Once inside his office, I waited until the door was fully closed before speaking. Let me get straight to the point. My son and daughter-in-law, Travis and Rachel Johnson, came to you recently regarding a change in their estate. I have reason to believe they may have used false or incomplete information to try and redirect control over assets that legally belong. To me, he shifted in his seat. I see. And what exactly is your concern? I pulled out a copy of the trust documents Benjamin had printed for me. I slid them across the desk. Everything in this folder is current and legally binding. The property, financial instruments, even the business investment agreements. All of it is held under a trust in my name. I'm the trustee, and none of it was ever transferred to Rachel or Travis, not formally, not legally. He adjusted his glasses and started flipping through the pages. I watched his eyes narrow. I continued. They'd been acting under the assumption that I was gone for good, that they could move ahead without resistance. What they didn't know is that I've been watching every step. Mr. Henley leaned back and folded his hands. I'm not at liberty to discuss client files with a third party, he said carefully. I understand, I replied. I'm not asking you to disclose anything confidential. I'm here to provide clarification. And a warning. A warning. If you proceed with any will or estate planning on their behalf that involves assets not legally theirs, you may find yourself entangled in a case of negligence or worse. There was a long pause. He studied me, trying to read whether I was bluffing. I wasn't. I see, he said again. Slower this time? Then may I ask, are you planning to involve your own legal counsel? I already have. That seemed to settle it. He gave a short nod. I appreciate you coming in. Mrs. Johnson, if any future requests from your son or his wife pertain to these matters, I'll proceed with caution. Good, I said, standing. Because next time, there won't be a courtesy visit. He didn't walk me out. Didn't expect him to. Back at the motel, I sat by the window and watched the street. A delivery truck rumbled past. Kids in backpacks crossed at the corner. I held my tablet in my lap, scrolling through my email. There it was, a notification from Benjamin, confirming that the reassessment request for the property had gone through. The house was now officially flagged under review. Any attempt to refinance or list the home for sale would be blocked until further notice. I imagined Rachel reading that email, her face twisting with disbelief. She wasn't used to losing control. She had gotten comfortable with the idea that I was weak, that my silence meant surrender, but it never had. Later that afternoon, I called Peggy from the motel. I might stay a few more days, I said. There's still some business to handle. She didn't ask questions. She just said, "You're welcome here any time." The next day, I visited a storage facility on the east end of town. I had kept a unit there under my name since moving in with Travis. At the time, Rachel told me I didn't need to keep all that old junk, but I hadn't listened. I never told them I paid for storage. Inside that unit were the originals of every document that mattered: my birth certificate, marriage license, tax returns, old bank statements, the title deed to my previous house, the proof of the down payment on their home, and more. I pulled out the files and double-checked everything. Organized, protected, untouched. I also found a small box I hadn't looked at in years. Inside were letters from Travis when he was in college, before Rachel. Handwritten, messy, full of gratitude. "Thank you for helping with the books, Mom. I miss your lasagna. I love you." I put the lid back on. I didn't cry. I just felt done. That evening, I returned to the motel and drafted a letter. It wasn't for them. It was for myself. A kind of declaration. I didn't plan to send it. I just needed to see the words in front of me. They used my kindness as leverage. They mistook my silence for absence. They left me at a station with a suitcase and a one-way ticket, but I kept the deed, I kept the accounts, I kept my name, and now they get nothing more. At 9:47 p.m., my phone lit up again. This time, it was Rachel. "You had no right to interfere with the house." I didn't reply. 1 minute later, "If you're trying to ruin this family, you've succeeded." Still nothing. Then, do you even care what this is doing to Travis? That one made me pause. Because the truth was, I did care. But I cared more about what Travis didn't do. He didn't stop her. He didn't stand up. He didn't call me. Not until the property notices arrived. Not until the money became uncertain. I turned off the phone and went to sleep. Tomorrow, I'd make one last stop. Not for revenge. Just for closure. The next morning, I packed my things slowly. I folded the same cardigan I had worn to the train station and zipped up my bag. I didn't plan on staying at the motel another night. I had one more place to go. And then I'd head back to Peggy's for a while before deciding what came next. The visit wasn't spontaneous. I had scheduled it the day before. Through Benjamin. He made the arrangements and confirmed the time. I didn't want drama. I didn't want yelling. Wanted it done face to face, with no confusion, at 11 a.m. sharp. I stepped out of the taxi and stood in front of my own house. The grass was slightly overgrown. The hedge that I used to trim every other week had gone untouched. There was a faint crack running across the bottom of the porch steps, one I'd told Travis to fix months ago. He never did. I rang the bell and waited. Rachel opened the door. For a moment, she didn't move. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice flat and sharp. "I have a meeting," I said. "With my son and with you." She opened her mouth like she wanted to argue, but something stopped her. Maybe it was the way I was dressed, calm, composed, holding no luggage. This time, maybe it was the envelope under my arm. Maybe it was the fact that she didn't know what I was about to say. She stepped aside. The house smelled different. It used to smell like lemon cleaner and fabric softener. Now, it smelled like takeout and a scented candle I didn't recognize. There were shoes piled in the hallway. Travis's laptop was open on the dining room table, and 2 empty coffee cups sat beside it. He looked up when I walked in. "Mom." He stood, but didn't come closer. "I told you we needed to talk," I said, setting the envelope on the table. "I wasn't expecting you here." He said, "You didn't expect a lot of things," I replied. Rachel folded her arms and leaned against the wall. "If this is about the property notice, it's not just about that," I said. "It's about everything." I sat down. Neither of them did. I'm not here to argue. I'm not here to raise my voice. Just want to Make sure you both understand exactly where things stand. I opened the envelope and pulled out 3 documents. I laid them out carefully on the table, one by one. This, I said, pointing to the first, is the current trust document that holds all my financial and real estate assets. It names me as the sole trustee and beneficiary. It was executed 2 years ago, notarized and updated last week. Everything is legally sound. I pointed to the second page. This is the property deed to this house, still under the trust. Still, mine, no transfer has ever occurred. No change in ownership was approved. Tap the final paper. And this is the notice filed through the county clerk that legally blocks any sale, rental, or modification to this property until further review. Meaning no new financing, no listing, no new insurance, nothing. Rachel's jaw was clenched tight. I don't understand what you want, she said. We weren't trying to take anything. I looked directly at her. You left me at a train station with no money and a bag I didn't pack. You told me I was a burden. Yeah, you said you were tired of taking care of me. And Travis didn't say a word. She looked at him, but he didn't meet her eyes, I thought. He started, then trailed off. I thought you needed a break. I thought you were okay with going. I held up my hand. Let's stop pretending, Travis. You knew what she was doing. You let her do it? You just didn't want to be the one to say the words out loud. No one spoke for a moment. I continued. I'm not here to take anything from you. I'm here to reclaim what's mine. It's paid for this house. I signed the mortgage. Tie. I made the down payment when you couldn't qualify on your own. The only reason this roof is over your heads is because I made it possible. Rachel tried to speak, but I cut her off. You wanted me gone? Fine, I'm gone. But you don't get to enjoy the benefits of what I built while pretending I don't exist. I reached into my purse and pulled out one final page. This is a notice of revocation, of permission to reside in the property, effective in 30 days. Rachel took a sharp breath. You're kicking us out, she snapped. I'm reclaiming what's mine, I said. She'll have 30 days to make arrangements. After that, the trust will list the property for sale or rental. You will have no further legal claim to it. Travis looked stunned. Where are we supposed to go? He asked. You should have thought about that before letting your wife abandon. Me with a one-way ticket and no explanation. He rubbed his forehead. Mom, please, let's talk about this. We can work something out. No, Travis, we're past that. Rachel's voice rose. You're doing this out of spite. I'm doing this because you thought I had no options. You treated me like dead weight. Now you're learning I wasn't as helpless as you assumed. She stormed out of the room. I turned back to Travis. I loved you more than anything. I said, but love doesn't mean I have to accept disrespect or betrayal. I didn't want this, he said, barely above a whisper. Then you should have stopped it. I stood up and collected the documents. I'll have the formal notice delivered tomorrow. Till then, I suggest you start packing. I walked out of the house without another word. The sky was overcast. I didn't look back at the end of the block. Benjamin was waiting in his car. Kai got in the passenger seat and closed the door. How'd it go? He asked. Exactly as expected, I said. We drove in silence for a while. Then I said, they never thought I'd come back. He nodded. They do now. That evening, back at Peggy's house, I sat at the kitchen table while she stirred a pot of chili. You did it, she said. I had to. You look tired. I am. But you're also free. I thought about that. I wasn't happy. Not yet. But I was free. The first week after the confrontation passed quietly. Number? More calls, no texts. No lawyers knocking at doors. Just silence. I knew Rachel was trying to find a way to undo what I had set in motion. But legally, she had no standing. Travis had no claim either. They could protest, argue, cry, or plead, but the documents didn't lie. The house wasn't. It never had been. The certified notice of revocation arrived at their doorstep 2 days after my visit. Benjamin made sure it was delivered by hand. I didn't need to be there to see the reaction. I already knew what it would look like. The panic, the calls to friends, the late-night online searches for housing, the quiet fights behind closed doors. I stayed at Peggy's through it all. We fell into a quiet rhythm. Coffee at 7, a walk around the block mid-morning, news at 5. Oh? She didn't ask for details, unless I offered them. Most days, I didn't. On the 12th day, Travis showed up at the station. Peggy told me he'd been asking around for me. I wasn't surprised he found me. What surprised me was that he came alone. He waited near the bench by the main terminal until my shift ended. I had started volunteering with Peggy a few hours each day, helping with the lost and found and organizing old records. It gave me something to do, some way to focus my mind on anything other than what was unraveling behind the scenes. When I saw him, I stopped in my tracks. He looked thinner, unshaven. There were dark circles under his eyes. "I just want 5 minutes," he said. I nodded and walked with him to the vending machines in the back hallway. No one was around. I didn't know it would go this far. He said, "You didn't want to know." He exhaled hard. I should have stopped her. I should have said something. I thought you'd bounce back. Like always. I leaned against the wall. I always bounced back because I had no choice. You never made it easy. He looked down. I made mistakes. You made decisions, I corrected. Mistakes are accidents. This wasn't one. He nodded slowly. We've been looking for apartments. Everything's either too expensive or too far from Rachel's work. I said nothing. I want you to know I'm sorry. He added, "Are you sorry you left me at that station? Or sorry you lost the house?" His silence gave me the answer. I pushed off the wall. "You'll land on your feet, Travis. You always do. But you're going to have to do it without me this time." He looked like he wanted to say more, but he didn't. We stood there for a moment longer. Then I turned and walked away. By the 24th day, the moving truck was parked in front of the house. A neighbor texted me a photo. Rachel stood on the lawn shouting into a phone while movers carried boxes out. Travis was sitting on the steps, head in his hands. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel vengeance. I felt closure. 2 days later, the property manager changed the locks. Benjamin and I met the new tenant a week after that, a retired woman and her sister, who had just moved into town to be closer to their grandchildren. They were polite, respectful, and paid their first 2 months up front. I handed over the keys without hesitation. I used part of the proceeds to pay back Peggy for all her generosity. She refused the check at first, but I insisted. "You gave me more than shelter," I said. "You reminded me I mattered." She hugged me, and that was that. I kept a small apartment near the train station. Nothing big, just 2 rooms and a kitchenette. Enough for one person to live comfortably and independently. I decorated it with things I had in storage photos from my teaching days. A small wooden clock Travis made in high school. The quilt. My mother left me. I didn't speak to Rachel again. Travis called on my birthday. I answered. We spoke for 3 minutes. "I hope you're well," he said. "I am." Then silence. Neither of us knew what to say after that. I didn't need to say more. A few months later, I passed by the train station again, this time on my way to visit an old friend from college. I sat on the same bench where Rachel had left me. Same bricks, same clock ticking overhead. But everything was different back then. I was holding a suitcase I hadn't packed and a ticket I hadn't chosen. Now I had a destination of my own. I didn't stay long, just enough to remember. Then I stood, walked to the platform, and boarded my train, and this time I didn't look back.